Abam.info presents Murder by Natural Causes by J Isserow. Read by the author. Prologue. George Walther Stott was about to take his final breath, and he knew he was not much longer for this world. Why, to be honest, the ancient invalid was feeling as if he had already long outstayed his welcome. If he had been able to vocalize this thought, his carers would have agreed. They had been catering to his every whim for the last 30 years, every meal and drink and the resulting bowel and bladder movements, since the doctors first advised him that his time was short. The doctors, who George lovingly referred to as useless fuckpigs, were evidently incorrect, and George had since outlived them some 3 decades later. Previous to his incapacitation, he dedicated his life to amassing a fortune in the company market, building a conglomerate and making it bigger and bigger with his expert businessman knowledge, until he had amassed more money than most small to moderately sized countries. He used a small portion of that vast wealth to build himself a town, Stottington, which was once called Milton Keynes, before he had it, and everyone who lived in it, flattened to start anew. Anyone who had ever been to Milton Keynes thought it was a vast improvement. Propped up in bed, he spent his days surrounded by machines he didn't care for, and people he cared for even less. His body had long since given up its primary functions. The robots did most of the work now, took his blood out and filtered it before returning it to his veins, removed his urine and were kind enough not to return it, digested his food and siphoned out his excretions, kept his heart pumping and lungs inflating, and electrodes on his muscles kept them from atrophying. Not that his range of movement was worth it, but money being no object, his physicians, the useless fuckpigs, insisted upon it. There he lay, still in his bed, with machine impulses twitching his sagging, translucent gray skin, beneath which a network of robotically pumped veins hung impotently atop frail, brittle bones. From somewhere deep in a haze of barely firing neurons, a thought rose to the surface. God, I wish I could be at my funeral. George Walther Stott took his final breath, holding onto it for as long as he could, savored it, and with a wry smile released his bowels one last time. Going to make those spunk-troplating fop-doodles work for their fucking inheritance, he thought. As his final breath left his body, and the machines droned inharmoniously, lethargic, reluctant resuscitation routines were carried out for the final time on his lifeless body. He lay as still as he had for the last 30 years, but with a knowing grin engraved on his otherwise vacant face. 1. Winslow Stott was having a shitty day. He awoke to shitty weather, made himself a shitty breakfast, had a shitty shit, a shitty shower, and now his gorgeous wife Madeline was being shitty to him. "I don't understand why I can't have it," decried the striking Amazonian blonde. "All I do all day is sit around this pointlessly big house and watch the dust gather." "Well, we'll have to fire the maid," said Winslow, adjusting his spectacles. "You shouldn't be gathering dust." "You're not listening to what I'm saying," she replied with seething anger. "Well, you're obviously moving too much. Trophies are meant to sit on a shelf and be shiny, gathering dust until the maid gets to them." "You know trophy wife isn't a literal term, right?" she replied, her flawless porcelain brow attempting to crease with anger, its movement limited by the Botox dwelling under her skin. "I had a special shelf built for you to sit on," replied Winslow. "There's even a plaque at the base.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?